all fiat currencies, as we all know, are Ponzi's. And we are actually living through what looks like the terminal phase of the world's largest Ponzi scheme. So this time around, unlike the other hundreds of times throughout history where fiat currencies were destroyed, this thing called Bitcoin came around, a decentralized protocol which enabled people to unilaterally leave the fiat currency system and not be ordered by governments to do what they're bidding. And so what we've seen is just in 12 years' time, incredible viral growth of this system, which one by one is converting everyone from institutions to retail investors and shortly, I believe, central banks and governments. And of course, unlike the legacy financial system, which is ran by old stodgy rich people, here the young people are leading the revolution in all different countries, races, ages. It's absolutely amazing to watch. So I believe that unlike in the past where I had a negative outlook for what would happen when the dollar and other fiat currencies, people lost faith in them, I have a very positive outlook for humanity going forward.
Welcome to this RTD interview. Today, I'm excited to have returning guest, Mr. Andy Hoffman. He's a market analyst as well as an investor. And today he's joining us to share his thoughts on the global economy, monetary system, as well as precious metals and the crypto space. So Andy, welcome back to RTD interviews, my friend.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. It's been 5.5 years. I looked it up and I couldn't believe how much time had passed.
Yes, 5 years, man. A lot has happened since we last connected, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on a little bit of everything. But before we dive into the nitty gritty of this discussion today, for those that might be new to Andy Hoffman, can you give them a little bit of your background and how you've arrived at this point in your career?
Right. Well, I've had a long career, 30 years. In 2002, though, as far as this content comes, is when I got into gold heavily and became a major player in the gold community from 2002 to about 2017. I wrote for GATA for many, many years. Then I was working for mining companies, and then I was the marketing director of Miles Franklin, a major bullion dealer, from 2011 to 17. Along the way, in the 2013-14 timeframe, people would talk to me about Bitcoin, asking me what I thought, since it's kind of related in the sound money realm. And it took me a while, but in early 2016, I started to believe and to invest and to write about it every day, along with my gold and silver stuff. But I got so into it that by the time it was 2017, I was starting to divest my precious metals for Bitcoin. And in August of 2017, I actually got fired from Miles Franklin for speaking too much about Bitcoin. I immediately started my own firm, CryptoGoldCentral.com, which is focused solely, actually was focused on gold and Bitcoin, but I instantly, within months, sold all my gold and silver and became a major Bitcoin advocate. I've been in the Bitcoin community for many years now. I do consultations. I actually have a crypto tech firm I'm working with. And, my view is that, all fiat currencies, as we all know, are Ponzi's, and we are actually living through what looks like the terminal phase of the world's largest Ponzi scheme.
All right. So you got a lot of stuff we're going to touch on in that, but I appreciate for sharing that. And let's just start with our last part there, Ponzi scheme. And so we are right now the debt ceiling where they kick the can further, where we fall off the cliff, and they're talking about good faith and credit. We've always paid our bills, all that good stuff. Out of all this stuff that's going on, what concerns you the most about the current events right now, or what excites you more about what's to come?
Right. Well, all fiat currencies fail because they are inherently, some people throw around the term Ponzi scheme, but that's exactly what fiat currency systems are. And ultimately they die because either people lose confidence or they, you need to keep giving it more and more stimulus until you destroy it. The difference between this system and the other one, of course, this one's the only one, starting in 1971, which all the currencies were unbacked at the same time. And because the marvels of financial technology, the powers that be, led by the United States government and central bank, have used all method of, what were the three words I used? Propaganda, market manipulation, and I forgot what the third one was. I haven't written in a while, to keep the game going. Game theory led the other central banks and governments to join them, but in doing so, they simply made things worse for themselves. and got to the point now where the debt is rising exponentially. Of course, the 2008 financial crisis was, in my view, back then what broke the system and created the QE to infinity scenario that commenced then. And then, of course, the backbreaker was the reaction, not COVID, the reaction to COVID, where governments went all in and showed that they are going to destroy the currencies no matter what. So this time around, unlike the other hundreds of times throughout history where fiat currencies were destroyed, this thing called Bitcoin came around, a decentralized protocol which enabled people to unilaterally leave the fiat currency system and not be ordered by governments to do what they're bidding. And so what we've seen is just in 12 years' time, incredible viral growth of this system, which one by one is converting everyone from institutions to retail investors and shortly, I believe, central banks and governments. And of course, unlike the legacy financial system, which is ran by old stodgy rich people, here the young people are leading the revolution in all different countries, races, ages. It's absolutely amazing to watch. So I believe that unlike in the past where I had a negative outlook for what would happen when the dollar and other fiat currencies, people lost faith in them, I have a very positive outlook for humanity going forward.
That's good. And so as you transition from metals into the Bitcoin space in particular, I'm curious to get your thoughts on all the other projects, because Bitcoin, of course, is the I guess the gold standard as people put it, and all the other coins or whatever they might fall into category wise. But yeah, one of the things that always concern me is that we're here at this point in time, not by coincidence. And I remember the Economist cover 1988 talked about in 2018, the Phoenix burning currencies. So it was predicted that at some point, this Ponzi scheme fiat currency system would run its course, and there'll be the introduction of something new. And of course, that coin, and you can just guess what all that's about. But yet, using technology and Bitcoin in particular, I never really bought into the idea that this is Satoshi Nakamoto being a genius, decided to free humanity and stuff like that. That was one of the things I was very skeptical on. How did you overcome those concerns, if you ever even had those?
Well, I never had concerns about the motives. I do believe the motive of Satoshi, be it a man, woman, or group. I personally, based on the emails I saw, I think it was one man who did it, although he certainly was collaborating with others. But either way, I never, clearly the white paper is an attempt at creating an alternative financial system. And, the first block of the Genesis block actually talks about the government bailouts. Back in 2008. I really had to overcome it was so new and there was so many threats to it. Would it work? I know, of course, in the beginning, you had things like hacks. Actually, I had some of my Bitcoin hacked from Mt. Gox. I had some back then. And there were a lot of challenges along the way, hard forks. Are there better ways of doing it? Could government stop it? All kinds of things. So it was really just like anything, like investing in a startup company, so much more can go wrong. As opposed to Satoshi, who I think he really was, sent from divinely, whether you're religious or not. His message, especially because he's never shown himself and probably never will, has this kind of spiritual kind of connotation to it, which I'm not sure how to interpret, but it does make me feel stronger about the project. Now here we are. I've now been in the space and invested for a long, long time, and it's gotten to the point where I no longer have any fears. I think we've reached escape velocity in terms of it's now unstoppable because it's fully decentralized and growing. And of course, the governments are really destroying their reputations and their currencies at the same time. So it was really just more like having to deal with something that was new and scary. Right now, I find the return reward on Bitcoin at 50,000 far, far better than when it was $400 back in early 2016.
Yeah, I do agree. And then I couldn't and not talk about, I guess this week, the Federal Reserve is releasing their white paper, or the consumer report that they're trying to get, basically feedback from the public about their CBDC. And so the transition from gold, silver, back paper to futures products created to now digits are being transformed into this CBDC style. How coincidental, as the fiat Ponzi scheme ends, they're trying to rebrand with a new version of currency as well, I guess, to compete with Bitcoin and all this other state or space or what? What do you think is this going to work or no?
Well, the funny thing is, I've always thought there's so few people in the Bitcoin space. And even now, I've been well known in the space for years, and still no one from friends to family ask me about it. It's really remarkable. So I always feel like all this stuff going on is inside information, because it's almost like, how can people not see this, how obvious it is? And when it comes to these central bank digital currencies, it's even one of the more comical things that there's even a discussion about. First of all currencies now are basically digital. I mean, how much percent of transactions are in cash? Most of it are balances on brokerage statements and banks and wires between a lot of it from government entities and banking entities. You don't even know how much there is or where it's coming from. And we've seen so much scandal and corruption. But I mean, these CBDCs, all it really means is that the government is going to make it not only fully digital. It's not like India's war on cash. It's meaning they're going to control everything. They're basically going to be able to watch your transactions and allow you to have money if they want, or take it away if they want. And if they want a negative interest rate, well, they'll make it a negative interest rate. Heck, they can say, Mike, we want you to have a negative interest rate because we don't like you, but we like our friend Jamie Dimon, so he gets a 10% interest rate. So these are really just a means of government in very Orwellian fashion taking over what they haven't taken over. The problem is that in a system, the old systems, they could do it like in India when they say, this is what you do, and we don't care if you die in the transition. Here, people can opt out. Of course, in the past, gold was the only real way to opt out, but Bitcoin is a far superior version in every way, and it's showing. I mean, the price is going up. People are leaving precious metals. They're leaving pretty much everything else because Bitcoin is, to me, the future money of the world. And you asked about the other currencies. I don't like to call the other assets in the space currencies, because Bitcoin is the only one that's decentralized, the only one that actually has monetary properties. All these other altcoins, I mean, 99% of them are essentially just trying to capitalize. They're all centralized, and they're all trying to capitalize on Bitcoin's success by trying to get people to give them Bitcoin for them. Now, there are some that have honest goals. Some are not in any way competing with Bitcoin. I mean, none are competing with Bitcoin for money, but others are in spaces that really have nothing to do with money at all. They're trying to create new digital age applications. And in the Bitcoin space, we have a term called maximalism, where it basically means that you think Bitcoin is the only thing that will exist and everything else will die. I think in the terms of money, that is the case, but there are going to be altcoins that succeed, because I do believe that not just fiat currencies, but all legacy asset classes are archaic. I think stocks and bonds, particularly, they served their use in the past, but now, just like people view fiat currencies as basically scams and schemes to confiscate wealth by inflation, stocks and bonds are quite obviously scams and schemes for companies and banks to basically, well, I should say, for the executives of companies and bankers to extract wealth from the public and the companies. And I think they will be replaced by digital technologies in the future.
I do agree with that. But yet also, we still have a lot of nations, ideally China, Russia, all the BRICS, the AIB, all those new infrastructures being built, I guess, towards the Eastern Hemisphere. They are and have been accumulating gold at a very alarming pace over the last decade, give or take. And so I was assume they still have a role for gold, and possibly what's their intentions for continue to collect and store gold in vaults? Is it to stabilize the system and whenever things are turned towards the east, or what? What's the point of still having gold, you think, in their opinion?
Well, of course, there's always going to be old school people who believe in legacy assets. There's going to be people who, to the end, believe in fiat currency. There are going to be people to the end who believe that Bitcoin is nothing. There are going to be people to the end that believe gold is the future. But the first thing I'll say about that is, I mean, very well, I spent 15 years starting with GATA talking about manipulated markets, particularly precious metals and stocks. And there's no evidence that China or any of these countries have bought gold. They say they buy gold, but unlike the Bitcoin blockchain, where you can verify exactly, like El Salvador is now buying Bitcoin, they'll show you their wallet address and say, here it is. But China can keep saying all they want. First of all, remember, China for years said they had no gold, and then all of a sudden they said, we have a lot of gold. So, which is true. The United States still says it has, what is that? I forgot the number, 40,000 tons, but they haven't been audited in 70 or 80 years. And we know for a fact that they've swapped and leased all this stuff out. So who knows how much it actually exists? And, if they actually, and again, they may be buying gold according to what they say, but the price is not going up. So someone is selling it. So look, I mean, people are welcome to believe what they want. I'm not trying to be disrespectful in that matter, but I've been very vocal for 5 years of my belief that Bitcoin is replacing gold. I think silver, frankly, has already lost its monetary value. And I think we're seeing in front of our eyes gold lose its monetary value too. It just doesn't have utility as money anymore in a digital age. That's my very strong view. It's how I've invested. That's how I've spoken for years. And I really hope more people do research on the topic, because all you have to do is look at the headlines of all the entities that are entering the space in the institutional and retail world to realize that it is going viral. And like I said, at $50,000, the risk reward to me is much better, because there was a lot of risk of failure in the early years. To me, there's no risk of failure now. I think you're going to see Bitcoin go 10x in the next year or two in today's dollars as it goes viral. That's the beauty of network effects.
All right. Now, one of the things you mentioned about silver having lost its monetary value. So I can hear a lot of people saying, hey, there's a lot of silver stackers out there. And then just the fact that silver, I guess at 22, whatever it is that trading range that they managed to keep it in between. It appears that, silver having been so suppressed in price in comparison to all the other commodities that are booming right now. If silver was to break, because silver is needed as a part of this new Green Deal, the climate change, solar panel. I mean, silver will be heavily needed in this future they have planned for us. And so there's no way it can remain at $22. And so we have all the, silver bugs, gold bugs saying 600 an ounce, 1,000 an ounce. To me, that shows that it still has industrial use. And for some people who are banking on it in the future, still has a little bit of a monetary role, wouldn't you say? Or not at all?
There's a couple of things going on. For one, because gold and silver or let's talk about silver, were monetary, the powers that be have been fighting it for years. We know that with manipulation. That's why they created these massive futures markets to depress the price and hold it down. And in the meantime, have kind of reduced physical demand to almost nothing right now in the monetary space. I'm not talking about industrial space. And that's where it is right now. I mean, you look at the spreads at bullion dealers, they've never been wider, never. I mean, the spread on silver eagles is like $10 an ounce right now. It's insane because there's not a lot of liquidity. So what you're seeing is, yes, there's industrial demand, but you're also seeing, again, the reduction of monetary demand that's countering the increase that based on industrial demand. And I think even gold is going to give it a competition from an industrial demand part now as it loses its monetary value. It is a superior industrial metal to silver, but it wasn't used for industry, and I think it will be now. So there's a lot of headwinds in the silver market right now, and I think that gold and silver are just going to rise with the cost of production over the years. Remember, the other thing I've been saying for a long time now is, look, when I was at Miles Franklin, I left in 2017, our average client, I would say, was well in their 60s. And that was 5 years ago. And these people are going to be passing away in the next couple of decades. And they have all the retail silver. They're going to pass it on to their Gen Z and millennial heirs. And those Gen Z and millennial heirs are going to sell them. They're going to buy digital assets. It's a digital age. Mm-hmm. So there's a huge amount of headwinds in the silver market right now. I don't see it going anywhere except moving with the cost of production. That's just my view, and so far it's been right. But I really feel strongly that people are going to be amazed when they look up even 2 or 3 years from now. I believe Bitcoin will surpass gold's market cap by then, and I think silver is. I mean, look, you see the gold silver ratio is 80 now. It could go over 100 again. That's just how I look at it.
Yeah. Anything is possible. And I do, as I mentioned before we went live, I do see the use case for this new digital asset class, because we're getting to the point where technology is so useful in all of our lives. It's only ideal that people would do transactions on a network or blockchain or something like that. So Bitcoin definitely I think gold, silver, and Bitcoin to me will all do well, given the fact it's based in dollar terms for now. So as the dollar is weaponized continuously and destroyed, everything else will typically rise. And of course, Bitcoin will do better faster, I believe. But I'm concerned about the regulatory environment, because I remember when cryptocurrency and Bitcoin first started, it was all about disrupting the banks. Now it's about waiting for clarity and regulatory framework to be developed for institutional money. And so it went from being something that was against government to now we're like waiting on approval or something like that. And so it's changed over the last couple of years, and that's something that's caught my attention. But based upon all the stuff we're experiencing now with the infrastructure bills, those two little clauses wanting to tax miners, and they want to see everything on the ledger. That's what's one of my biggest problems. I'm concerned about the lack of privacy for now. But are those things that you're open to and welcome to, the regulatory clarity things, or what?
Well, first off, you're talking about privacy and regulation. It's funny. I'm not sure why the gold community acts like that this is not the case in gold. I would say that gold and silver are perhaps the most regulated systems out there. First of all, gold and silver were confiscated. You weren't allowed to use them. They could certainly do that again. No one could really store it at home because it's too dangerous and expensive. So it's in third parties that could be confiscated. And of course, every transaction that a bullion dealer does is on the ledger. So they could do whatever they want with it. And I'm not sure why, when the gold community says, well, look at Bitcoin, it's got to have to worry about regulation. But what I would say is, again, a few years ago, I would say, yes, people were like, well, what's going to happen if governments try to stop it? The thing is, now you realize that they can't stop it. Now, and again, there's a big difference between Bitcoin and the other crypto assets. Bitcoin is decentralized. You can't stop it. I mean, Jay Powell just said it yesterday. We can't. He said we won't do anything, but they can't do anything. China just banned Bitcoin. They kicked out all the miners. That was half of the mining network in the world. And guess what? The hash rate of the Bitcoin network is just about to an all-time high 5 months later. And oh yeah, the price is approaching an all-time high again. They don't care. In fact, doing that made it better for Bitcoin because it further decentralized the geography of the miners. So we thank you, the Chinese government. Governments can't do anything to Bitcoin. It's fully decentralized. And by the way, there are many countries that are and governments that are favorable to it. In fact, there's a whole major movement in the U.S. government of senators and congressmen who are extremely favorable to it. I mean, the state of Texas alone is having a huge blockchain summit with their governors and senators on Friday, saying we want to be. I mean, they may secede, like they've always talked about, to become a Bitcoin state. Florida may do the same thing. Wyoming may do the same thing. So there's no, quote, government issues when it comes to Bitcoin. And even the other crypto assets, the decentralized one, yes, because theoretically the government could go order Amazon Web Services to shut down servers, and there goes a lot of these other assets. But why would they? I mean, how would you even do that? What would it look like for the rest of the world? So I think even the completely centralized assets from Ethereum on down, there's nothing governments could do to stop them. They're trading 24/7 all over the world, and people are going to be buying these assets for decades to come. Bitcoin is going to become the currency of the world. I can't say for what will happen in the rest of the crypto asset space. There's no doubt, despite what maximalists say, that there's going to be some big winners. There's going to be a lot of losers. But the fact is that we are heading into a digital space where everything we've ever known has been disrupted. And everything people who are tied to legacy asset classes, be it stocks, bonds, fiat currencies, precious metals, in my view, are going to miss out on the greatest revolution in history. And the easiest way to get started is to simply just buy some Bitcoin and hold it, because it'll force you to pay attention to what's going on.
Very true. And I think one of the mottos of you can't beat them, so join them. And so if the federal government or governments in general can't beat them, they'll join them. And I think that's what part of that CBDC stuff they're trying to throw out. But then again, it's the idea of we can still control them because we can just tax the snot out of them by changing the rules of the game. So typically,
but they can't tax them. I mean, first of all, it's funny when they talk about, I mean, you got Janet Yellen talking about we're going to tax unrealized. No, I mean, first of all, it's so, the fact that she's a Treasury Secretary even suggested something so stupid. That would mean everyone would have to sell their house right now, like half of the country.
Yeah.
But aside from that, you can't tax something like Bitcoin, because as much as they like talk about a private, how you can track it, you really can't. And by the way, there's a new upgrade called Taproot that's going to be entered into the system in November, which is going to make Bitcoin vastly more private than it was before. And of course, there's all kinds of things people can do to make it even more private now. So it wouldn't matter anyway. You couldn't even enforce it or figure out how to enforce it if they wanted to. And like I said, there's an increasing amount of government officials who are pro Bitcoin and pro cryptocurrency, so you wouldn't even be able to pass this stuff if you wanted to. And if you tried, it would simply be like telling a kid, don't drink alcohol or something like that. All it'll do is, in fact, there's several countries that ban cryptocurrency, Nigeria, Pakistan, and all it does is make adoption go up. So at this point, it should get to a point where you realize governments can't do anything. And that would go the same for gold. The concept of we're going to confiscate, you confiscate anything, you're basically saying it's valuable. And how would you even do that anyway? Were they going to go to Brinks and say, give us all your customers gold, and like we're a third world country in the Middle Ages? No, I mean, it's over. We're in a digital age, we're in a decentralized age. Everything that's been destroying the world that we're on this call talking about is going to be upended by technology. And that's why I'm excited. In the past, I didn't see an out other than governments just creating wars and making our lives miserable until a new government took over. But that won't be the case this time.
Yeah. Well, Andy Hoffman, man, it is great to connect with you. Excited for just the information you shared and the enthusiasm around big BTC. As I mentioned before, familiar with the space, dip and dabbled in it myself. So I believe there's room for all of it to succeed in the future. And once again, for those that might just come across you for the first time, point it back in your direction and how they can plug in and stay tuned with what you have going on.
Right. Well, I've ran CryptoGoldCentral.com for the past 4 years now. It's a consultancy and blog on principally on Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. And actually, I'm the VP of a crypto prime company called Digital Lending Capital Corp. A lot of interesting things we're going to be announcing shortly. And that's what I do with my time.
All right. Sounds good. Once again, Andy, appreciate you for joining us on RTD. Looking forward to connecting you again. And so before we sign off, give us your projections as to how we end the year in the BTC space, and just throw in gold and silver just because. I mean, we'll see. What are your price thoughts or projections?
I couldn't be more bullish. I think 100,000 by year end is as close to a slam dunk as you get, in my view. Mm-hmm. And I think next year it's going to be an even bigger year. And look, precious metals. Look, if we do have a monetary crisis this year, and again, look, you see the dollar is going up because it's amazing how many people keep talking about the dollar as if it's the only currency in the world. Mm-hmm. There's many others that are in even worse shape because they're not the reserve currency. So you could see a financial crisis, a currency crisis, with the dollar index going up. But if this inflation that's really getting scary right now becomes an issue that the world gets scared, I could see everything going up by at least the rate of inflation. But if not, I mean, I don't know what gold and silver are going to do, because I do believe that there's a lot of institutions right now that are starting to recognize or believe that Bitcoin is the monetary asset of the future. So I don't know what gold and silver will do.
Hey, stay grinding and continue to do what you do. Thank you for joining us on RTD Interviews.
Thank you, Mike.